The front door unlocked itself. It was a small sound, precise, mechanical, final. A soft click that didn't belong to anything else in the house. Not the refrigerator's hum, not the settling wood, not the distant pipes ticking as they cooled. I froze on the couch, remote in hand, the television casting a pale, restless light across the living room. For a second, I thought it had come from the TV. A sound effect, a coincidence. Then the handle turned, not quickly, not forcefully. It rotated with a slow, deliberate patience, as if guided by a hand that knew exactly how much pressure to apply. I muted the television. Silence pressed in immediately, thick enough to feel. The handle stopped moving. I stared at the front door from across the room. It was still closed. The deadbolt, I knew, had been locked. I remembered turning it, habitual, automatic, something I always did before settling in for the night. Another second passed. Then the handle eased back into place with a faint, careful thunk. I didn't move right away. My mind worked through the possibilities. Faulty lock, shifting wood, maybe I hadn't locked it properly after all. Houses made noises. Old houses especially. This one had its share. Still, I stood, setting the remote down with more care than necessary, as if noise itself might provoke something. The walk to the door felt longer than it should have. The rug muffled my steps, but I could still hear the subtle drag of fabric, the faint creak of floorboards beneath it. Every sound seemed amplified now, isolated. When I reached the door, I didn't open it. I leaned in slightly, listening. Nothing on the other side. No footsteps on the porch, no rustle of leaves, no passing car. I tested the knob. It turned easily in my hand. Unlocked. A small, tight feeling gathered in my chest. I was certain, absolutely certain, I had locked it. I slid the deadbolt into place again. The metal extended with a solid, reassuring clunk. Then, for good measure, I tried the handle. It held firm. I stood there a moment longer, hand resting against the wood. It felt cold, colder than the rest of the house. Old house, I muttered under my breath. The words didn't carry any weight. I stepped back, watching the door as I returned to the couch. I didn't unmute the television right away. The silence felt necessary now, like I needed to hear the house think. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Eventually, I convinced myself to relax. I turned the sound back on, though quieter than before. The familiar voices filled the room, smoothing over the edges of the quiet. But I kept glancing at the door. It stayed still, until it didn't. This time, the sound came sharper. The deadbolt sliding back, not a click, more of a drawn-out scrape, metal retracting against resistance. I was on my feet before it finished. "No," I said, the word coming out louder than I intended. The bolt was halfway retracted. I watched it move the rest of the way, slow and steady, as if someone on the other side were turning it with careful precision. But the keyhole was empty. The lock finished disengaging. The handle followed, turning just enough to release the latch. The door didn't open. It just sat there, unlocked again. A thin draft slipped through the seam, brushing against my face. It carried a smell I couldn't place. Not outside air, not exactly. Something stale, enclosed. I approached more cautiously this time, stopping a step short. My eyes fixed on the handle, waiting for it to move again. It didn't. I reached out and pulled the door open. The porch was empty. The night stretched out beyond it, quiet, still, the streetlights casting long, undisturbed shadows across the pavement. No movement, no sound. I stepped outside, just far enough to look both ways. Nothing. When I turned back, the house loomed behind me, darker than it should have been. The interior light didn't spill out as far as I expected. It seemed to stop at the threshold, as if something inside was holding it back. I stepped in quickly and shut the door, locking it again. This time, I didn't leave it. I stood there, watching. The seconds dragged. My reflection stared back at me from the small glass pane near the top, pale, tense, eyes fixed. Then, behind my reflection, something shifted. Not in the room, in the door itself. I leaned closer. The wood grain seemed off, subtly misaligned, like layers that didn't quite match. And beneath the surface, there was movement. Not visible in any direct way, more like a suggestion, a distortion, as if the material were thinner than it should be. The handle twitched under my hand. I flinched but didn't pull away. Another twitch, stronger. Then the deadbolt began to turn again. But this time, I was holding it. I felt the resistance, something on the other side applying pressure. Not mechanical, not random, intentional. My grip tightened instinctively. "No," I whispered. The bolt strained against my hand, inching back despite the force I applied. It wasn't strong, not overwhelmingly so, but persistent. Steady, like it didn't need to rush. Like it had time. My arm trembled. The bolt slid free. The handle turned beneath my palm, colder now, almost slick. And then, a second hand closed over mine. I didn't see it appear. I felt it, cold, dry, fingers aligning perfectly with mine, as if mirroring them. Not grabbing, not squeezing, matching. For a moment, we held the handle together. I couldn't breathe. The door eased open a fraction, the latch slipping free with a soft, final sound. A thin line of darkness appeared in the gap, deeper than the night outside. Not absence of light, something heavier. Something that didn't reflect anything back. The hand over mine tightened slightly, guiding. Not pulling me out, pulling the door wider. I tried to jerk back, but my arm wouldn't respond. My body felt locked in place, like the signal between thought and movement had been severed. The gap widened. The darkness inside it shifted. And then I understood. It wasn't outside. It was inside the door. The space beyond the threshold didn't match the porch. There was no concrete, no railing, no streetlight glow. Just that dense, lightless depth, stretching inward. The house hadn't been keeping something out. It had been keeping it contained. The hand released mine. I stumbled back, air rushing into my lungs in a sharp, painful gasp. The door remained open. Nothing came through, but the darkness inside seemed to lean, subtly, like it was aware of the space it now had. Behind me, somewhere deeper in the house, a floorboard creaked. I turned. The hallway was empty, but another door, my bedroom, stood slightly ajar. I was certain I had closed it. As I watched, it opened a little wider. Not quickly, not dramatically, just enough to invite. A soft, familiar click echoed from down the hall. The sound of a lock disengaging. I looked back at the front door. Still open, still wrong, and then I realized, it hadn't unlocked itself. It had unlocked the house. Room by room, one door at a time, starting from the front. Her reflection mouthed, "Don't turn around." At first, I thought I'd imagined it, the way you sometimes think a shadow moves when it's only your eyes adjusting. The bathroom light above the mirror had been flickering all evening, a soft, intermittent stutter that made everything feel slightly out of sync. Every few seconds, the room dipped into a dimmer version of itself, then returned, like a breath being held and released. I stood at the sink, toothbrush still in my hand, foam gathering at the corners of my mouth. The mirror was slightly fogged from the shower I'd taken earlier, leaving faint streaks where I'd wiped it with my palm. My reflection stared back at me, pale and familiar, framed by the yellowing light. Normal. Then it blinked. A fraction too late. I froze, the bristles of the toothbrush pressing against my teeth. My eyes stayed locked on the mirror, waiting for some correction, some alignment that would make what I'd seen make sense. Nothing corrected. My reflection's gaze felt steadier than mine. More focused. Like it wasn't just following me, it was watching. The light flickered again. When it steadied, my reflection's lips were moving. Slowly, carefully. I didn't feel my own mouth move. The foam slid, unnoticed, down my chin as I stared. "Don't turn around." No sound. Just the shape of the words, precise and unmistakable. A coldness slipped through me, starting at the base of my neck and spreading outward, like something had opened behind me and led in a draft that didn't belong to the room. I told myself it was a trick. A misfire in perception. The brain trying to make patterns out of nothing. I swallowed, my throat tight, and forced my hand to move. I spat into the sink, rinsed my mouth, each motion deliberate and controlled, like I was demonstrating normal behavior for an audience. In the mirror, she did the same. Exactly the same. I leaned closer to the glass, studying every detail. The faint blemish near my jaw. The slight asymmetry in my eyebrows. The way my hair clung damply to my temples. Everything matched, except the feeling. The light flickered again, longer this time. The room dimmed enough that the edges of my reflection softened, blending into the darker background of the hallway behind me. When the light returned, she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking past me. Her eyes were fixed on something over my shoulder. My stomach tightened. I didn't turn. "Don't do that," I whispered, my voice barely audible. In the mirror, her lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite anything I recognized. Then, slowly, she raised a hand. I felt my own arm stay at my side. She lifted hers higher, pointing. Behind me. A faint sound drifted through the apartment. Not loud, not sharp, just enough to register, a soft, irregular creak, like a floorboard adjusting under weight. I lived alone. The hallway outside the bathroom was narrow, lined with a long strip of glass that reflected the opposite wall. During the day, it caught sunlight and made the space feel wider. At night, it only multiplied the darkness. Another creak, closer this time. My reflection's finger trembled slightly, still pointing, her gaze unwavering. "Don't turn around," she mouthed again, more urgently. My heart was beating too fast now, each pulse heavy and intrusive. I could hear it in my ears, feel it in my throat. "If there's something there," I started, my voice shaking. She shook her head, not mirroring me, interrupting me. A sharp, deliberate motion. The light flickered again. For a split second, the room went dim enough that the mirror became more window than reflection. I could see deeper into the hallway behind me, shapes flattening into silhouettes. Something moved. I saw it, not directly, but in the layered reflections beyond the bathroom door. A shift in the dark, like a person stepping just out of alignment with the walls. The light snapped back. My reflection's eyes widened. She lowered her hand and pressed both palms flat against the mirror, fingers splayed, as if bracing herself, or trying to reach through. Her mouth moved faster now. Too late. The words formed with a clarity that made my stomach drop. "I told you not to turn." "I didn't," I began, but the sentence died in my throat. Because I had, not fully, not consciously, but somewhere in that flicker of light, in that instinctive search for movement, I had shifted, just enough. Enough for whatever was behind me to know I'd seen it. The air in the bathroom changed. It felt thicker, harder to breathe, like the space had shrunk by a few inches on all sides. Behind me, something exhaled. Slow, close. The sound didn't come from the hallway anymore. It came from just outside the bathroom door. My reflection went very still. Then, slowly, she looked back at me. There was something different in her expression now. Not fear, not exactly, recognition, like she understood something I didn't yet. Her lips moved one last time. "Now it knows which one you are." The words landed with a quiet finality. The light flickered again, and when it came back, she wasn't copying me at all. I hadn't moved, but she took a small step back from the mirror, her posture shifting, her breathing visible in the slight rise and fall of her shoulders. Behind her, behind me, the bathroom door began to open. I felt nothing, no air movement, no sound of the handle turning. But in the reflection, it was unmistakable. The gap widened slowly, revealing a darkness deeper than the unlit hallway should have allowed. My reflection didn't look at it. She kept her eyes on me. Watching, waiting. I tried to move, to turn, to do anything, but my body felt distant, unresponsive, like I was already halfway removed from it. The darkness in the doorway thickened, taking on shape without definition. Not a figure, not a shadow, something that understood both, but wasn't limited to either. It leaned forward. My reflection's lips parted, like she was about to say something else. Then she hesitated. For the first time, she looked uncertain. The light flickered harder now, faster, the room stuttering between brightness and dimness in uneven pulses. Each time it dipped, the thing in the doorway seemed closer. Each time it returned, it held its position, like it only moved when unseen. My reflection glanced past me again, then back to my face. A decision. Her hand lifted, pressing once more against the glass, aligning with where mine would have been if I could move. For a moment, it felt like there was pressure there. A faint, impossible contact. Her mouth formed a final, silent sentence. "Stay still." The light went out, not a flicker this time. A full, sudden darkness. In the black, I could hear it move. Not walking, not stepping, closing distance in a way that didn't belong to space. I tried to breathe quietly, to remain as still as she'd instructed, but my body betrayed me, a shallow inhale, a tremor I couldn't suppress. Something stopped directly behind me, so close I could feel the absence of warmth. Time stretched. Then, the light returned. The bathroom snapped back into view, harsh and yellow and unchanged. The door was closed. The hallway beyond it was empty. In the mirror, my reflection stood exactly where it should be, matching me perfectly. No extra movement, no delay, just me. Except, she was smiling, and I wasn't. Her lips parted slowly, deliberately. And though I didn't hear a sound, I knew exactly what she was saying. "Don't turn around."